Kate, obviously the Ukraine is one of the world's great bread baskets, rivaling the great prairies in Canada and America. Obviously, wheat supplies are going to be severely affected this year. What impact is that going to have on the price of food?
Significant. As we've already heard, we were already amidst this perfect storm of challenges within the food and supply marketplace. We know that there was weather conditions that had impacted it. We hadn't had the crops that we wanted. We know a lot of these manufacturers have been trying to hold off the cost implications and the increases, working with retailers to try and make sure the cost of living stayed stable. But we heard announcements at the beginning of the year. Many organisations were telling us the reality of the situation. That cost of living was going to go up because we were going to see these increases in fuel and food. And indeed, 3 weeks ago, that was the headline on every single newspaper. It's incredibly challenging. Food bank use is up higher than ever. And I'm hearing directly from those food banks that people are going in there with mortgages, dual income families. This is a different set of people relying on those necessities within communities. We have a real challenge here. And I'm afraid that with fuel, it is also an impact on everything beyond that, Richard, beyond bread and wheat and dog food and biscuits and all of those items that do contain wheat, and corn and soy are affected too. But fuel is a massive part of every single industry. It's a cog in a wheel that turns. It affects haulage, it affects production. So we're going to see this increase in cost. My biggest concern is for autumn, because I think as we start to see the weather improve, people might start to become a little bit more considered and feel that they're okay with their bills. But this autumn is going to be one of the most challenging yet. And even last night, American economists were suggesting that the UK might even be hitting recession point then.
Well, Kate, I mean, there's one thing, isn't there? You might see that the price rises are passed on to consumers, but you might also, God forbid, see that the companies take a hit on their profits in order to prevent consumers paying the price. How likely is it that the companies take a bigger hit rather than hard-pressed fuel buyers, and shoppers?
I think there's been some great work by the campaigner Jack Monroe, who's been pushing back on supermarkets to introduce more of the value ranges that weren't there, that had disappeared from the shelves. I think it's really important that every business does the right thing. Consumers buy with heart and mind now, and they do want to make sure that they're buying from ethical organisations who stand by them to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, they are not charities themselves, and they have to survive and they have to pass on costs. I mean, we've seen over years, we've talked about things like shrinkflation, where an item is actually reduced in terms of size, but the price remains the same. So when you're shopping, you do really need to remain vigilant. Yeah. I do agree with the calls on the government. Last 2020, they were helping us to eat out. I think they need to help us to eat. We absolutely need to see some change there. And we need to make sure that we can survive. We put money into the economy will rally. So it makes good sense.
And just very briefly, because we're out of time, just not much more than a couple of sentences, you talk about price rises. What about actual supplies in the shops? I mean, as you say, wheat goes into so many foodstuffs, pasta, bread, biscuits, pastries, you name it. Might we see a shortage of supply, or will supplies hold up, do you think?
Potentially, but we have been very spoilt with the amount of products we have at our fingertips within supermarkets, huge amount of ranges, huge amount of choice. And I think over the past 2 years, the consumers become used to not seeing it there. Just a reminder, though, the average household wastes 40% of its food still. So one of the biggest impacts you can make financially and also for the environment is start trying to work through that, try and waste less food yourselves.
OK, thank you.